Okay, so let's begin. So my name is Rothrup, and I'm the Grants Program Associate here at the York County Community Foundation. I want to welcome everyone for joining me today, and thank you for joining as one of our community grant readers. We're very excited to have everyone here. We really believe that having the community's input in this process is so very great, and we're very fortunate for everyone who has signed up. As a reminder, this is a new initiative to YCCF, so we enjoy constantly learning about ways that we can improve this system and this process. Please feel free to share with us any feedback that you might have by just reaching out, calling, or sending me an email. Before we can assign grants, though, which we plan to do later this week, you must complete and return your confidentiality form. This was sent last week. If you need another copy, please reach out to me and I'll send you another one. And we can begin. So a little bit of housekeeping is we want to notify everybody about the audio settings down in the left-hand corner. This is a way to test your speakers in case you are unable to hear me, as well as a way to mute yourself instead of joining in vocally. The other thing is down at the bottom of your screen, you have a raise and a lower your hand feature. This is just the way to get our attention in case you have any questions or concerns. But for any questions, there's also a Q&A down at the bottom. You can input any type of question that you want and it will show up on my screen so that I can answer. You can also send them anonymously if you don't feel like sending it in through your own name. We would ask that you please hold questions until the end. If there is something very urgent, please let us know and I'll be glad to answer it. So the one thing is the purpose of this training is to help better understand the scoring guideline document that was sent out last week. This has tips and advice around considering grants. We will also do this by walking through the guidelines a little bit, as well as using the sample grant application that we sent out last week. Also, we want to be able to identify areas of the grant application that may be weak or sufficient or insufficient. Again, we want to really raise some concerns around certain grants, around sections that may not be as strong as others. And lastly, while 1 and 2 are involved with critical thinking of grant making, 3 and 4 are to help get you prepared to score grants on our online grant software, Foundit. Next thing is a document that will be sent out after this is the funding priorities. So each application selects the priority area that the program will impact. For Embracing Aging, programs must serve people 50 plus. For Fund for York County, applicants must make the case that their programs will help disadvantaged students succeed in school, help people get family-sustaining jobs, or revitalize downtowns through the county or the city neighborhoods. Applicants must demonstrate that their programs will have positive impact on the fund priority they selected. So they should really make the case in their application of why the priority they apply for really pertains to the program that they have created in order to fix those areas or to help those areas. So we wanted to give a little bit of background between the competitive and the community grants. So the one thing is our competitive grants were originally made for grants either of $6,000 for smaller impact grants and $20,000 for grants that could generate a little bit more impact. Now, the one thing for competitive grants is that the turnaround was a long time, consisting around 25 to 30 weeks. The competitive cycle also had the same application for small and larger grants. Now, we ended up shifting over to the community grants last year. The grant process that has a shorter turnaround period of 10 to 11 weeks, and it is available twice a year. We did this to provide more opportunities for grantees. The applications are much shorter for community grants. Additionally, the Community Foundation wanted to open the process to interested community volunteers so we can have the benefit of your diverse perspectives. In past years, we collected funds for smaller and larger grants. In the community grant process, these pots of money are separated. For each cycle, Embracing Aging has devoted $25,000, and Fun for Your County has devoted $35,000. So now with twice a year, this will result in a total of $120,000 designated for community grants. The one thing is, once we spend through that money, that is all gone, and that pot will be gone, and then we will reallocate money next year. Staff participation in this cycle is limited. So community grant readers will score and aggregate. We will use their scores to aggregate the totals, which the top scoring grants will receive funding. We will not decide which ones will receive funding. That is completely up to the community grant readers. We will instead do a little bit of vetting on ourselves in order to make sure that the programs and the organizations are fundable, looking at their audits and their financials to make sure that they're not going to receive the money that will just help them last a little bit longer. So staff will review the remaining grants to determine if there are any that could be fundable. So if there is a grant application that is not funded, we might take that to committee or to interested donors. So we wanted to do a quick activity, and this will work by pulling out your phones. So, or you can use your computer to go to the website, and we'll show how to do that after this. But we sent out that sample grant application last week, which was called Sisters of Hope. You should have read that and scored the grant, and those scores will be used in this activity. So the first thing that we want you to do is, either on your computer or on your phone, go to pollev.com/YorkCountyCo261, and that is for the website. Or you can text York County Code 261 to the number 22333. So in the area where you would place the number, you would just type in 22333 and send in York County Co. And I'll give you a little bit of time to do that. And once you're all set up and joined, in the text message, it will send you a confirmation. On the website, you would have to fill out your name, but it is completely anonymous. Does anybody have any questions about that process? Okay, so we will keep moving on. So on here, this is the first part of the example. So in the rubric, it asks you if the organization has relevant experience in the requested program project area. So in the group of sisters, this section would talk about the organization history or mission. So you can feel free to type in your answer. What you would do is you would type in A, B, C, D, or E, and send that through the text message or on your computer, and it should show up on the screen. Okay, so we have some answers for A. So while going through this with our in-person trainings, some people have pointed out different sections in the number 1 section for organization by saying that they wanted a little bit more information. So some people rated it 3 or below because they felt like the evidence for the capacity that the organization has wasn't there. And this is experience developing materials. Also, some said the agreement from the school. They wish that that would have been put in there, a little bit of how their relationship with the school has been sustained and how well it's going. As well as they wanted more background information and mentoring information. So a little bit more in-depth conversation around what they have done in the past. So they have sustained themselves for 3 years, but they wanted to know, again, how long before that were they really working on these materials. So again, we say that in the Things to Consider document, some of the most important sections are the organization's history and the mission, especially how it aligns to the program and project area. So again, grants are not math problems, and you'll use your own common sense to deduce if a program is fundable or a need. We all draw conclusions differently, and this is why it is important to get this chance to discuss these grants, but also in order to shed light on a couple of different scenarios. So one of the things for this is that if a church-based food pantry wants a grant to teach computer coding, we want to make sure that they explain why this fits with their mission. And this is why this section is so important. Next, we have the second section on the rubric, which was program project is clearly described, including key activities and numbers and information about people served. So again, something from Sisters is a lot of people had concerns around the lack of programmatic procedure and processes. So they wanted to see more information on the guidelines for recruitment. Why were kids chosen and how were they chosen to be a part of this program? How many kids were in each session? Was it 20 kids per session, or was it 20 kids for the whole 12-week program? Others were guidance counselors involved? Are they making the decisions? In the first paragraph, they say that there's important data and that these data addresses those needs, but yet they didn't cite any data. And the topics for the sessions were not listed. So these were a couple things that other people have brought up that they saw in this section or that they wish that was included in this section. So again, program design, you want a real clear understanding of what the key activities and timeline for the project are, how the organization will develop and implement it, but also how many people will the program project serve. So an example is if a number is low for the amount of people served, such as 10 people, and the grant amount requested is $6,000, that will mean that the cost of the grant per person served is $600. So that's $600 per one person. Does investing that much per person make sense for the program project's impact overall? So we really want to use our common sense here and there. And this is through lived experience, because everybody who is a grant reader has their own perspectives and experiences that is important to this. So you can bring your own lens to these problems and to these projects. And number 3, degree to which program project will achieve positive change. And number 3 and 4 will answer both back to back. The reason for this is because they're very closely intertwined. Again, in number 3, they don't really clearly state what happens afterward. After the program, they don't say if it's going to be ongoing. So this was some things that they brought up that this section really should bring up what's going to happen afterward. What's the impact after this program is completed. So we're going to jump to number 4. Program project has measurable ways to determine what they have achieved. So some things in this section that was brought up during our in-person training was that this measurable activities could have been more creative. So one of the examples of that is we believe that a Chicago Symphony started to count how well their concerts were doing by standing ovations. So they would decide how many standing ovations they have, and they would decide a number. So they would say, I want 50 standing ovations for all of our concerts. And then they would measure how many they actually received. So they could have been more creative in this aspect. Some people also brought up pre-surveys for this one. So the students who are coming into this program, they don't really know what the baseline is. So a lot of people wanted to see pre-surveys on their self-esteem, as well as some of the measurements don't align with program design for personal plans. So personal plans were brought up in the second section, that they would start to meet with the children and plan out what they're going to be doing afterward, but yet there was no measurements on if they were going to meet or not afterward. So going back to 3, the impact is the ongoing effect that the organization will have after their program or project. Ultimately, it's what they'll affect in the community. Is this a process, a behavior in some way over time? Also, they should hit on this, they should hit in this section, how will they measure their achievements a little bit? So, is it really measurable? Is it observational? But they should at least say something of how they're going to, one, just measure the overall impact. And then number 4, while the other focused on the impact afterward, number 4, outcomes, focuses how they collect the data. So this is done by different methodologies on how to collect the data, including surveys and interviews, focus groups. So this could be measured in different ways afterward. The degree of change that they hope to achieve should also be outlined in this section. So the degree of change focuses on a target percentage or numerical change. And what they should do in this section is say that we want 75% of people to attend, and we're going to do that by mapping out or collecting attendance data. They can also say that 50% of students will be more successful in school afterward. So there has to be some kind of numerical value related to the methodology, but also the impact that they're having. We'll move on to number 5. Program project structure is well designed and achievable. So one of the things that some people brought up and from sisters that they're unsure how it will continue afterward. And others brought up other factors such as the stipends were too much. Now how that plays with the overall section of the things to consider is that this section should refer to the leadership experience as well as the program project sustainability. So we want to make sure that the people leading the program project have the experience to do so. In addition, we want to see that the organization has identified as how they will continue offering the program or project after the grant funding is over. Our hope is that the program or project is successful and that it will continue years after the initial grant. So as long as they kind of hit that they have some thought of the sustainability afterward, and as long as leadership has the expertise or displays the expertise, they will score a high grant. And lastly, program project has appropriate cost for its scope. So in regards to sisters, some people have brought up that the activity materials could have been better defined. And this is what we look for in budgets every now and then. is that we want to make sure that they are very clear, that we know what the money is being spent on, because otherwise they might get things wrong, or there's some things that we just really don't see as appropriate that match up to the program description. So what they ultimately put in the sections before should match up with the budget for what they want to spend the money on. Lastly, the expenses didn't match up. So they had marked out a couple of different expenses towards the stipends and refreshments. And at the end, the total said $5,700, but yet that was $200 off. So we want to make sure that we pay attention to if the budget's really matching up, and if the money really matches up to the expenses for the program. So again, in this section, there is a spot for income and a spot for expenses. Income shows that they're generating revenue. So they can do this through grants, other private contributions, membership fees, and dues. And the expenses are how much they're spending on the program. So again, we want a defined list of items that reflect the ask in the grant. So if an organization is listing $1,000 for equipment, they should have a breakdown of all supplies purchased, such as pens, paper, and legal pads, with their associated cost per item totaling the $1,000. Lastly, expenses cannot be for an endowment, capital campaigns, budget shortfalls, normal operations, debt retirement, or association dues. So the one thing is, after this training, we are going to continue and look into our grant system Foundit. But after this, we will assign evaluations on Thursday, end of the day at the latest. And then evaluations for the grants are due April 1st, 2020. Once we have the scores, we will notify the organizations that are funded, as well as the grant readers who read through this process. We will notify you guys of what programs were funded. Is there any questions before we move on? Okay. So one of the main important things of being a community grant reader is, of course, the evaluations. So after this, you will receive your email and your password to Foundit, which is our software. And right now we're going to go through how to get to that software. So first, you're going to have to go to yccf.org. Once you go to yccf.org, there is a panel at the top of the screen that shows grant login. And that is where you will want to click on in order to access the software. One thing is, you cannot do this through your phone because that bar does not show up. So you will want to evaluate all of your grants on a desktop or on a laptop. Once you click on the grant login, it will take you to this type of page where it will show in where you go in for. So the one thing is that you will insert your username, which is usually your email address, and your password. And then you want to click log on. When you click log on, it will take you to your dashboard. One thing is that if you ever forget your password, just click forget your password and it will send you a link to change it. And lastly, if you're completely unsure, please just reach out to me and I'll be glad to help you. One thing you do not want to do is to click create new account. That button will generate you as an applicant in the system and will not show you the same dashboard as a community reader. So the one thing I wanted to do is show you, yes, on the top of this screen, if everybody can see it, there is a home button, the shared documents, fax to file, and my organization chart. And you don't have to really worry about the last two. Shared documents, once you click into there, it will have all that information to open up that folder so you can download all the documents that you need. So on here, this is what the dashboard looks like. It will show all the grant applications. And again, we would like for you to click on the red exclamation point. Once you have the red exclamation point open, it will show both the application and the evaluation. And again, we have that evaluation packet button on this side and the application packet on the right-hand side. And again, this just downloads all the materials, as well as if you want to use them for print, though we highly suggest not to print these out because some of these have their attached audits, so it could be up to 100 pages. Instead of doing that, there's this button called Document Viewer, and that button will open up any documents attached to the request, and you just click on them on the right-hand side. So this opens up their board members list, anything that they have attached. Up here on this screen too, you'll have to click the arrows in order to scroll through the pages. It will not do it automatically. And you have a zoom and a rotate feature. The other thing is, while going through the application, you will see little eyeballs that are coming through underneath each section that they have an attached item. So once you click on that, it opens up the same view in the document viewer. Once you finish your evaluations, down at the bottom, it will ask you a reflection to share one thing you like about the program or project and one thing you wish they included in their application. Next is their additional comments about the grants. So if you have any other things that you want to share about the grant, we suggest that you do that in that bubble or in that text field. One thing that we do as staff is we will reach out to all of the organizations who are not funded and invite them to come and talk to us. And we will aggregate all this data anonymously and share them common themes that we see throughout all the grant readers' comments. So we like to just do that in order to help them to reapply later on, different things that other people have seen. And this ultimately helps them become better grant writers. Lastly is you can save these. Once you save them, it will aggregate the total all by itself, and it will take you to the home screen or to the next pending application. Now on the home screen again, you can click on the project and that'll open up a different screen that looks something like this. On the right-hand side, that's where you would like to click and see the application. So it would open up another view. But again, it won't open up the side-by-side. So that's where we suggest going to the exclamation points, and after you're finished the evaluations, it will show a green check mark. Lastly, on the things to consider that we sent out, on the second page underneath Remember, we put in there that if a section is omitted, to give it a score of 1. We are going to change that to 0. So if a section is ever left out of the application, please score that as 0. And we do have that reflected in here, and we will also be sending out a new scoring guidelines document. But we wanted to raise that on everybody's radar for when they're going to be scoring grants. And that is all I have today. So if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in. If you have any questions for me afterward and you want to talk or chat by email, please feel free to reach out. My phone number is 717-848-3733. Again, that's 717-848-3733. And again, we'll send out all the information for you to log in, as well as your username and password later today and tomorrow. So I'll give a little bit for questions, but thank you everyone for joining me. And thank you for joining as a community grant reader. Thank you. Since there is no questions, we will end, and feel free to reach out to me if you do have any other questions. Thank you. Bye.